Hello and welcome to the Self-Aware Leader. And I'm really excited about today's program because I'm being joined by a special guest. And we're also going to do something a little different from our previous episodes. But it's something that we're going to be doing regularly on the Self-Aware Leader. And that is featuring another leader and letting them share with us their story. And so today I'm joined by Lam Rocco, and she's a friend in life and a friend in business. And I'll just share that, May, welcome. I'm really glad to have you with us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So let me just put this a little bit in perspective, because in kind of putting this for the, what we've done in the past with Self-Aware Leader, we've talked about some of these different things about how do you understand the makeup of people. And, May and I were actually involved in business together where we were bringing a new product to the market in China that helps profile people in terms of their basic traits. And so in personality studies, basic traits are something that, people really pay attention to really give you insight to understand a person. The truth, though, is that basic traits are only one part of the picture. It's not the whole picture of personality. And things like personal concerns, or how you change over your life, and some of the goals you set and your motivations and how you adapt in situations, is a whole nother piece of the puzzle, more than basic traits. And then on another level, your own personal story, which is like your intrinsic, the personal details and the path that you took in life that's unique to you. No one else has your story, is something really important for us to understand if you really want to understand a person. And when it comes to business, we really want to understand people better, and we want to understand ourselves better. So for the Self-Aware Leader, Lam Rocco is going to help us understand, why would a leader want to tell their story and delve into their story, and not just the pretty and the nice parts of the story. So May, I've just kind of teed it up for you, but maybe you can just help us. I would like you to maybe share with us a real quick rundown, maybe in like 2 or 3 minutes, but introduce yourself to us and tell us your story in just a nutshell, kind of like what your life has been, and let us understand a little bit about you.
Yes, thank you, Ron. I am an entrepreneur and I'm a businesswoman. I'm actually a trained businesswoman from a very young age. My family is 3 generations in business. And my family is originally from Malaysia, and my mother is from China. So I grew up in a very entrepreneurial family. So at a very young age, I will go out to have dinner with my father and his client. I sat there and just watching them talk and all that. That actually start building my experience in being with people and understanding what they are talking about, in the sense that they are talking about business, although I don't know the detail. But that experience has actually enriched me and helped me to become an entrepreneur as I grow up. So I was originally grew up in Hong Kong, and I left Hong Kong when I was 14 years old to a very small little town called Brunei. And that is also my first taste of understanding there are different cultures in this world. Because when you're young, a very young age, you grew up in Hong Kong, a very metropolitan city. So we day-to-day interacting is our own people, Chinese, Hong Kong people. But when I moved to this small little country, Brunei, and they're a Muslim country, there's a different culture. That actually set the stage for me for my journey in going into different part of the world later in my years. And I went to school in England. I studied business as well. I came back, I worked for the family. And at 26 years old, I went back from Brunei to Hong Kong to start another branch of the family business. That is another journey of my career, the beginning of my career, I would say.
Yeah.
And then I went to China in the 80s. and I built a number of plants, manufacturing plants in China. In the 80s, at that time, not many people from outside of China has gone into China to work. And then, of course, in the late 1990s, I went through a crisis of my life. And one day I lost everything, pretty much. I lost my marriage. I lost my relationship with my traditional family, as well as I lost my multi-millions dollars business. And that is another journey that I went through. I would call it the darkest moments of my life, because I lost everything. And then a few years later, I was able to bounce back. And I got my first job ever working for other people. That led me move to China. And then I lived in China for about 15 years in Shanghai. That's how I met Ron as well.
Yes.
And then from that, in between, there's also another very important milestone for me, is that I went to England and reconnect with my son, because my son and I have a very difficult time when he was growing up as a teenager. And that was also the same time when I gone through those darkest moments of my life. So I went to England and I start building that relationship, reconnect with my son. So that's another major turning point in my life. So pretty much in a nutshell, that's about my journey.
Yeah. So you were born and grew up in Asia, especially East Asia, and then went to a boarding school in England, in the UK, as a late teenager, I would say. Is that right?
Around 16 years old. I left home at around 16.
Yeah. And then came back to Asia and worked in the family business. That's what you were referring to. And had a lot. So when you said I went to work for other people for the first time, well, you actually worked for other people, but it didn't feel like other people, because you were working in the family business. Yes. So it felt like you're working with people you knew very well, and it wasn't really like an employee at all, was it?
That's right. Yeah. I pretty much I have 3 other siblings, so I pretty much run the family business together with my brothers. Yeah. So my father is very hands off, I would say, given that he's from a traditional family. So when we left school and we were told we have to come home and work for the family business, there's no other choice or no other alternatives, And we grew up knowing that after we finish our study, we will go home and work for our father.
You're going to come back and work for the family. Yes. So May actually wrote a book that she finished last year, I believe, 2022, and it was published right at the end of 2022, came out, and it's entitled Confi-Dance. So that sounds like confidence, but with a dance, included. So tell us a little bit about the title, because that's really intriguing. That gets our attention.
Yes. I always look at life, it's almost like a dance to me, because every chapter of your life, there are good things, there are bad things. But if you're able to find your courage to, for instance, when you fall, it's not the fall that is scary, it's the inability to get back up. So for me, to be able to get back up, it's almost like you got to get up and dance. You got to get up, in a way that you get rid of all the negative thoughts you have, and you will be alive. It's almost like a dance. So in terms of building that confidence, I would like it to be like a dance. You come back up with a lot of energy, a lot of, happy thinking, happy mindset. So that's why I named the book called Confi-Dance.
Nice. Okay, I like that. And so the idea of life as a dance, and especially that line that you just shared, which I put here in the, down below in the banner, it's not the fall that's scary, which I think a lot of people would take exception with that, say, no, they won't even take a chance. They won't even get in the dance or get on the floor because I don't want to fall. I don't want to look silly. I don't want to make a mistake. But you have a different mindset about that. It's like, it's not the fall that's scary. It's really getting back up, because like once you fall, everyone's got their attention on you, and it can be very embarrassing. And it's like, what happens if you don't get up, or if you don't look, like you're put together?
Yes. These are some of my own experience as well. When I fall really hard, because that was something that
my heart goes out to you.
Because that was nothing. I never expected that to happen to me, and I don't think anybody would expect anything bad for them in their life.
Yes.
But when it happens and caught how to say it, catch you off guard,
Yes.
And you paralyzed. You just don't know what to do.
Yes.
But there are moments. Yes, there are moments that you will go through very difficult time, but you can only be there for a very short time. If you're not able to get yourself back up again, and you will be always, like you said, on the floor. And that is a very, very scary thing in my mind. So I went through that part of my life that I fell hard, but I find the courage to get back up again.
Wow. So we want to know more about that for sure. And I'm going to hold off for a second, because I really want to help our viewers get into the story a little bit more and understand some of the background. And for that, I think, you've mentioned it a few times, and even readers, I noticed some of the reviews made comments about, coming from a traditional background, or, as it's, your subtitle is Memories of an Asian Businesswoman. So for a Western audience, the world of Asian business is a little bit foreign to us. And so maybe it would be helpful for us to understand, some of the realities of Asia. You mentioned the family already. So let's just begin here. One of your readers gave this sort of comment on your book. It was Elliot Klaus, and said, while May's story is deeply personal, it also reveals that within the power of each of us as individuals, we have the power to transform our own lives, and in the process help to transform the world around us when we're powered by love and an indomitable spirit. That's a big word, indomitable, but it basically unconquerable, which is the get back up, right?
Yes, that is. Yeah. When I talk about Asian, one of the reasons why I put that, because as I said earlier on, I come from a very traditional background. What I mean by traditional background is my father and my grandfather, they both was born in Malaysia, but our ancestor actually are from China. Okay. So we have a lot of this Chinese value still retained in us. There's a lot of good part about Chinese values, to respect others, to be humble and work hard. These are the very good quality values that we process. But there's another part of that is a culture. I would call it an Asian culture, because not just apply to Chinese, it probably apply to Eastern like Singapore, Malaysia, Philippines. The Chinese who has migrated to those countries, they bring those values along with them. And
in your family, you've got sisters-in-law that are Japanese, Korean.
Yes.
I mean, you were in Brunei, which is Malay. There's a culture there. Yes. So really, the Asian cultures, whether you're in Thailand it tends to be more, I guess the anthropologists or the sociologists call it collective versus very individualistic.
Yes.
So that the focus is on the group and the family, especially more so than the individual.
Families is everything for us. As we grow up, I talk in my book. We have 18 people together every night to have dinner in one round table. As you know, the Chinese restaurant, they have that big round table.
Yes.
That's how I grew up for the first, I would say, 14, 15 years of my life.
Before you went to boarding school.
Yes, before I went to school in England, yes. And that is how family means to us. and we have to learn how to respect the elderly, because at that time my great grandmother's still alive. My grandfather lived with my grandfather and my grandmothers and my uncles and my cousins and all that. But when I talk about traditional, what I mean is that even though we are one big family, but it's still a very male dominant family. So my brother, I am number three in the family, and I am the only girl. And I have two other brothers before me and my younger brother. And my whole life, because I'm so, I would say I was born with a lot of confidence in me, I suppose. So when I
Yeah.
was young, I'm always very bossy. I'm always like telling my brother or my family what we need to do in business and all that. So all along, I thought I play a very, very important role in the family. I believe I do, but there
Yes.
are certain decisions when it comes to a decision making. It seems like it is in my family. It's still my older brother is the decision maker, and that's one part that I wrote in my book. That's the reason why I left the family business, is because
Yes.
there was one day we were working on an IPO in Hong Kong, and my brother was bring in some other outsiders into the project, and I don't think this is the right decision. I don't think
Hmm.
these are the people that we could trust. So I went to my father and asked my father permission to let me handle the project. And I was working on the project too, along with my brother. But
Right.
I was telling my father, this is not the right direction to go. And we really have to sit down and think about it. And then why don't you let me take on the project? Because I tried to talk to my brother about it and he would not listen to me.
Well, in fact, you had even brought in a very competent outside advisor
Yes,
to the business
yes,
who was trained in law and knew finance and was really in a good place to give
yes,
advice that was
advice.
objective,
Yes,
and kind of a little bit at a distance and not caught up in the emotion of the moment.
yes.
Yeah.
And so when I went to talk to my father, um, the first thing my father told me was, let your brother make the decision. And at first, I don't quite understand what he meant by my brother make the decision. So I repeat why I'm here
Wait, Dad, you
for.
don't seem to
Yeah.
understand the facts of the situation here.
Yes, I was telling him that, I see my brother's not going into the right direction. I think, and I even told
The
him that,
investors we've got, this isn't going to work out
yes,
real well for us.
yes, and I told Dad, I said, look, I can see my brother is at the cliff, about to fall inside the cliff. Are we not going to pull him back?
Right.
But he said it very firmly. Let your brother make the decision. And that time, it's like a light bulb just went up. It's not a nice light bulb, I would say.
Yes.
It's something that's just that I never thought about. My father would said that to me because
Yes.
I thought my decisions or my thinking counts in the family. Then I realized that, oh yeah, no matter how hard I work, no matter what my decision is, at the end of the day, it's still the
Yes.
older brother
Yes.
is still holding the key.
Okay.
So and I love my families very much, and
Sure.
I don't want to jeopardize that relationship, and that's the reason why I decided to leave the family business.
Yeah. So you actually had a lot of freedom, a lot of latitude to make decisions, to make deals, to work, in the business and shape a lot of things. But that was when you say the light bulb, that was like one of those days where you realize that you bumped up against an invisible wall.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of women would probably relate to that and say, like, a lot of women in business have bumped up against the invisible ceiling or the glass ceiling, which is like,
Yeah.
wait, how come
Yeah.
how come I'm not seen as and so that is probably a common experience a lot of people could relate to, is
Yes.
bumping up against this invisible barrier. There's like, oh wait, I didn't even know it was there
You're
until you
right.
hit it.
Yes. You are so right. It is because I just thought I was am I reacting to am I is my reaction wrong?
Yeah.
Am I throwing a tantrum or something like a little kid because that don't give me the things that I want? But that was really surprised me
Yes.
because all along I was working in the business, working together with my family. My decision, most of the time, I would tell my brother, let's work on this. Let's do this together. Let's bring in somebody else. So
Yes.
they all very agreeable
Up to
until
a point.
to a point. This is a very critical because that decision is mean a lot to our business.
Yes.
And and
Yes.
and my father said, let him take the lead.
So remind me, in birth order, were you second or third?
I'm the third. I'm the third in
Third.
the
So you have two
family.
older brothers and one younger
Yes.
brother.
Yes.
Got you. Okay. So maybe this will help also. I found this really interesting in your book. Let's bring mom into the picture here.
Yes.
You said in the book, I got a lot from my mother. She was a fighter, and I knew I was a fighter too. I had always been. And I knew I'd always find a way through, no matter how hard something might seem or how much fear I had inside. Tell us a little bit about mom.
Yes. My mother is a very strong character, I would say, but with a very kind heart. And my mother always, because my mother considered as a foreigner when he married to my father, although she was Chinese, but she is from Hainan. And my father family is from the south of China. And the language they use is, they cannot communicate with each other. The Hainanese language and the Hakka, originally my father is Hakka, they
Okay.
cannot communicate. So when they have to use a second language, which is Mandarin, where my father speaks Mandarin and my mother speaks
Oh,
Mandarin to
wow.
communicate with each other. And when my mother married into the family and living together with my grandmother and my grandfather and everybody else, and she considered as a foreigner. So my grandmother, the old traditional way, is more favor um, other daughter-in-law who's from the same village.
Oh,
So
wow.
my mother becoming like having difficulty with communicating with my grandmother, and my
Okay.
grandmother seems to be treating the other, daughter-in-law better. But she's always hold it into herself. She just put her head down. She worked hard. She she has very high standard for herself.
Yes.
Um, and she's a fighter. What I mean by that is that whenever I see her, there's challenge in her life. She would not. She wouldn't sort of like mumbling and complain about it. She
Mm.
would just work her way through. You know, even in the traditional family background, I can see her. She worked very hard. Even if at a very young age, we went to a school that we have to learn English. My mother didn't speak English at all, and she will learn the vocabulary to teach us how to speak English. So I mean, that to me is pretty amazing, right? But
Yes.
she can only do it in a certain level, of course.
Yes.
But at least she make an effort into it.
Yeah.
And at the later stage of her life, she become a economist. She become a politician. She understand all the politics in the world. She will
Wow.
talk to me about it. She will invest her money, very carefully. And each time she makes quite a bit of money, I have to say, I'm very impressed. It's all
Yes.
by self-learning. So that's my mother. So that's
Wow.
why I said I learned a lot from her because of that.
Wow. And, I think even, the fact of where your mom came from, when you say she was considered a foreigner, even though she was Chinese. And, again, this is something a little confusing to Westerners. It would be like, Chinese are Chinese, right? 1.3 billion people, largest people group in the world, but there's a lot of diversity.
Yes.
I recall I think this is like about 10 years ago, but I recall a meeting in Shenzhen that I was at where there were a group like 10 or 12, Chinese people, most younger than me, younger than, both of us. And we for some reason we're talking about language, and I asked a question of this group. I said, what do you think is the hardest language in the world to learn? And I was really struck by the answers. This is Shenzhen, which is a little more cosmopolitan in the south of China near Hong Kong. But, and it's really not like traditional Cantonese, like the rest of, but these people, someone answered very quickly and the rest of people nodded and said, oh, the people down in Leizhou, is like, oh, that's a really difficult language to learn. And I was like, Leizhou. And it's like, oh, they really see the world differently. I mean, China has 56 different nationalities, different languages and people groups. And so even within the Han Chinese, there's different dialects that can't understand and speak to one another in the same tongue unless they use Mandarin. They can't use their mother tongue that they learn at home. So that's a really, like strange concept to people, that Chinese may not be able to speak to one another in a common language.
Yeah, I give you a very another example, like Hokkien, right? Hokkien in also the southern part of China.
Yes,
their dialect is similar to the Taiwanese, also Hokkien,
right?
But they're not necessarily the same. They can understand a little bit, but they cannot understand fully. So, as you know, that I spent about 10 years of my time in Taiwan.
In Taiwan,
so
yes.
I learned about the Taiwanese language. I can understand a little bit, but not in speaking, because speaking becomes very difficult. Because that time I was learning my Mandarin as well.
Yes.
So
which was not your mother tongue? I mean, did your mom teach you any Mandarin?
No, not at all. Wow. So that was my when I first learned about Mandarin, that was my time when I was in Taiwan.
Wow.
So at the same time, I'm also learning a little bit about Hokkien.
The Hokkien dialect.
Hokkien dialect. But when I went to Hokkien, I could not understand what they're talking about, because it's just so different.
When you say when you went to Hokkien, are you talking about Fujian province in mainland China?
Yes, in mainland
China. So just across the strait between Taiwan, it's a small distance, but
they are different.
They speak the same dialect, but it's not the same language that they can understand each other.
Only certain words are similar, but I cannot understand them. So that tells you that how many languages that we have in China and the diversity of that.
Yes.
But Mandarin is the main language. So everybody can speak Mandarin. So that's a way to communicate among all the other different dialect peoples.
Yes. And the written language is the same. So even if people can't speak to one another, they can start writing. If they're literate, if they can write the language, they could understand that way.
Yes.
But that's very slow and cumbersome to communicate.
It's also complicated. But yes, you know that there's a traditional Chinese writing, which is the Taiwanese.
That's right.
Yeah. And
that's right. Hong
Chinese.
Kong and Taiwan uses the traditional script, they call it, and mainland China uses the simplified, so that they could teach literacy to more people is the reason.
Yes.
Wow. So much to learn if you're going to do business in Asia. So if I were to fly into Hong Kong, I'm ready to do a deal coming from America, and okay, let's get this deal done. What is the typical mistake that a Westerner is going to make, thinking that I'm going to fly into town on a weekend and get a deal done?
I think Asian, you probably know because you have a lot of experience in Asia as well. I think the trust is important. I think in the West the same way, but it's not that obvious. But if you work in business in China, you always hear people, if they want to work on a deal, they don't know where to go. The first thing they find is their friends, their close friends. The friends refer friends. They work with people that they somehow know. They find the comfort and the trust level there.
Yes.
But whereas in the West, it's a business. Okay, so I run this business. I look at other business. I'll just approach a business like a business way of doing. But in Asia, a lot of that is about relationship building first, and to get that comfort level. At least there's a certain comfort level there, and then we'll go into talking about business. And there's another thing also very obvious. They never say no directly to you. They will find all kinds of I wouldn't say excuses, but we say, okay,
roundabout ways.
roundabout ways, yes. But that means no. But in the West, if the deal doesn't work, and we'll say, no, this is not a good deal, let's
Not going to
come back
work.
some other
No.
time, right? But not so much in Asia, though.
Okay,
In
good.
Hong Kong, maybe, because Hong Kong is considered
A
more,
little more used to dealing with
yes,
Westerners.
yes, yes,
Okay. Wow. No, those are good points. And I think, my understanding has been that even the trust factor is one of the reasons why so many businesses in Asia are family businesses, because who can you trust? You can't trust outsiders. You can only trust family members or people who have family ties to you. And so, it's like, if we have an outsider coming into the business, they're always going to be an outsider in our eyes. It's like you always got to keep an eye on them because you can't fully trust them, right?
That's a very, very, I would call it very traditional way of running a business.
Yes.
We got to embrace other people's strength, as we said. And I have learned over my years of business experiences that I don't necessarily know everything.
Yes.
But what's important for me is to find somebody who does, somebody who are able to bring in the things that you don't have and come in and work as a team, which is very, very important. But I think in the Chinese family business, like you said earlier, they it's very much within the family. They will bring in other people. They will have employees. They will bring in other people in on the table. But oftentimes they're not in a high position or decision-making
Yes.
position. But it's evolving, and I'm happy to say that I have seen some of the family business bring in an outsiders, bring in expert to help to grow their business. That takes a very strong leader in the family business to have that open mind, because if you, it also depends the size of your business. If your size of the business is not that big, you'll be able to have all your children or grandchildren involved in it. But there's also a lot of conflicts as well, especially when I see a different generation join into the family business.
Yes.
Is that something that they want to do? I mean, in my generation, I never stopped thinking about what do I really want, that time when I was that age. All I know is that when I finish school, I will go home and work for my family, work in my family business. But I think this generation is very different now.
Yeah.
They want to work with something that they love, something they're passionate about. So have we ever stopped and asked them what do they really want to do with their life, instead of just push them right into the family business, and which they hate, they didn't like it. and you can imagine what kind of result you're going to get by that when you're working in something you're not happy. Yeah.
One of the things that struck me in reading your book was how from a very young age, you were, I don't know if groomed is the right word, but you were definitely in an environment that encouraged you to learn the business, to grow. And you learned so many lessons without, it wasn't like a sit down here, I'm going to teach you this. It was more like you just were around it and you picked it up. You were immersed in it, right?
Yes. Because in our family, in our dinner table, all we talk about is business. So I really grew up in that environment.
You mentioned this in your book. Here's the quote: "I never felt uncomfortable or scared by any situation in business. It felt like a natural thing. Since even at age 7, I'd sit at the breakfast table with my dad and his clients."
Yes.
So
I remember vividly. I was sitting there, and my dad traveling a lot when he was young. So when he came home, he always take me out, and he will have business friends coming from different part of the world as well. So that morning, I remember very well. I was sat there and I was having my breakfast, and also my dad is the one who taught me how to use knife and fork. I didn't even know how to use knife and fork at a very young age. And I sat there and I saw my father talking to his clients, and how he behaved, how he not, what the conversation. Although I don't quite understand what the conversation is about, but I'm observing that confidence in my father. I'm observing that interaction with different person, a stranger. To me, that is a stranger, and because of that, that's really the beginning of my training in business. So when I grow up, I never really afraid or scared when I go in to see somebody who are a very important person or politician or senior people or CEO. It never really give me that how do you call it?
Nervousness or
nervousness. I don't know what to say. Anxiety, and I think it's all because of those experiences that I had when I was young.
Wow. And, I was struck by that. And I really let's take a look at the young May. This is a picture of you, right?
That was in Brunei when I probably 15 years old, around that. Yes.
Okay. Yes. Wow. You said even being my own boss. So after you came back from studies in the UK, you went to work in the family business in Brunei because your dad was there and had, a business that was serving the Sultan of Brunei. Yes. A lot of people who are not familiar, that there's a Sultan of Brunei, which is on the island of Borneo, and it's an independent state, but they have this huge palace, and he may be one of the wealthiest men in the world that you've never heard of, right?
Yes, at one time he is the most wealthiest man in the world. Yes.
And you said, I knew I needed to be humble around things that I didn't know, but I learned how to listen and be fair to others. This is one of the lessons you taught me too, from your father and your grandfather. And you said, I learned that from, father and grandfather. Now, tell us about that, about being fair and about letting other people make money.
Let me tell you a story. That is my grandfather. Actually, my grandfather taught me about that. And of course, my father has been, I saw in his dealing with other people as well. And one time around Chinese New Year, we have to go to this nursery to buy a Chinese flower to celebrate the occasion.
Okay.
So this is kind of like a night market. So I went with my grandfather, and this guy was telling my grandfather, "Oh, this tree is going to cost you $2,000 Hong Kong, 2,000 Hong Kong dollars at the time. It's probably about like $200 US.
Okay,
that was a long time ago. Is a lot
pretty
of money.
expensive.
Yes, but it's a big tree.
Okay.
I don't know the name of the tree with all these little flowers on it. So Grandpa walked a few more store, asking. They all about the similar price. Then I heard my grandfather give him an offer, which is 800, and I was like, Grandpa, 2,000. Why you offer him 800? He's not going to sell it to you, And Grandpa didn't say anything. So he was telling the guy 800. The guy was very angry. He said, "No, this is $2,000. I mean, 800. No way, I'm not going to sell you 800." But my grandfather stand very firm, and he said, "Yeah, I will offer you $800 for this flowers." So the owner think, and at the end, he sold it to my grandfather, and I was shocked.
At 800, that was the price.
Yes, that was the price.
Wow.
And I said to my grandpa,
no bargaining. It was just 800.
Yeah, and I said, Grandpa, how do you know how much you're going to offer? And what about what this guy's not making money? And my grandfather he said, in business, you remember one thing: you always let other people make money, but you cannot make all the money in the world for yourself. So you have to be fair. So I asked him, how do you know it's 800? It's not 900 or 1,000,
Right.
And then he told me that is from experience. Okay. I know how much the flowers cost.
He knew the price. He knew the right price. And he was actually giving the guy a profit margin.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
He probably think that the tree probably cost him probably 300 or something.
Okay.
400
wow.
to get it.
So 2,000 was he was price gouging.
Yes, he was. That in China or in Chinese, we love to negotiate. We always negotiate. Yes. And that become my principle too. when I was living in China, we know that when we go to any shop to buy anything, it's almost like you spend an hour just hacking the price, And I hate it. I don't like, because I don't find those times are well spent for me, coming
Okay.
from a business person, and I don't
Yes.
want to spend an hour there. So a lot of time I will give them a price that I'm willing to pay, and I understand that price is, this person will also have his profit.
Right.
So instead of hacking back and forth after an hour, you might, get a 20 or 30% discount on that. They still give you something. Then why didn't they be, in my mind, why didn't they be honest and just give us the price? So
in actually we call it price
yeah.
discovery, but it's part of the relationship.
Yes. Maybe that's part of the relationship. Some people enjoy that, but not so much for me. So I always say in business, it's like, you have to think of other people as well. They have to make business. They have to make money. If they're not making money, they should not be in business. If you're not making money in your business, you shouldn't be in the business, right? But it also have to be fair, because you want a return customer. You want your customer to be a long-term customer to you. So there are certain things that we look at. Even though you give a little bit more, it's okay, as long as you think that is a fair deal to you. So that has always been the principle to me.
Yes.
And in business, if I think, okay, even though I have to take a haircut, but I know the relationship is important to me, I will do it, because I value the relationship more than just the money part of it. Yeah.
May, there's a part of your story that was I didn't know all the details, but I know after Brunei you went back to Hong Kong, and that in itself was a really interesting sort of like an awareness, I think, on your part, where you suddenly said, you know what, I need to kind of be out from under Dad's shadow, my father's shadow. I need to go make my own way. And you asked to be set up, and I want to go to Hong Kong and make business, and set up like a branch for the family. And he said, okay. He knew not to fight you, and he let you go.
He actually gave me two choices. I was asking to go back to Hong Kong to look for a job, to work for other people. And that was actually my intention, because I find that working in a family business, I can only learn so much. And I'm already in a certain position in the family.
Yes.
And I feel like, people respect me is because I am my father's daughter. They're not respect me because of my ability to do things.
Oh, it was borrowed power then.
Yes.
And influence.
And another thing is that I really wanted to prove to myself in a way that I can do it in an environment that I'm not familiar, or I have to work my way up. That was my thinking. But my father wouldn't give it to me. My father told me, you have two choices. You stay back in Brunei and work for me, or you go back to Hong Kong to set up that family business. I take the second one in second.
And you packed your bags that night. It was like, okay, I'm on my way to Hong Kong. I see. Oh, that's interesting. I didn't pick that up. So you actually wanted to be out on your own, but you still felt the tug of family loyalty, or like,
I mean, it's difficult for me to disobey my father. That is where the traditional come in as well. And my parents, I always believe what I am today is all given by my parents, And of course, and I grow, I learn as well. But the basic, the beginning, is all from the parents. And my parents has been very, very good to me. So even as a girl, I feel like I'm very fortunate as compared to a lot of girl out there in the traditional family, I would say.
There's a very interesting part of your story in chapter 3 of the book. And even the title of that chapter is called A Marriage of Two Families. And so you have a courtship in a sense with a guy named Gary, but I found it striking how Gary's father played such a big role in the story, and in many ways kind of stepped in to make things happen, and like in some ways kind of took your father, he took your father's place, not replace your father, but he kind of like had this very large influence, very, very large role, even in your marriage.
Yes.
And when you say a marriage of two families, it was also two families coming together to do business.
Yes. Yes. That was, I met my ex husband when I was in a party in Taiwan. That was a party that was actually his family held. I was invited to that party. That's how I met him. And Gary was actually American citizens. He studied in America. Um, and he has a lot of Western exposure, I would say. So at that time, I think the attraction was his family is also in business, and my family is also in business, and he's educated overseas, and I'm also educated overseas. So at that time, even I was a little naive, I didn't really understand what love is all about.
Okay.
The first thing that come to me was like, yeah, I mean, I like the guy, but I wouldn't say I was like
Head
love
over heels.
him head over heels. But I look at all the other things that is matter the most, whether the background is similar, whether his upbringing, and whether he's educated, is he a gentleman, and that kind of things. So then later on, I realized that my father-in-law actually is a self-made millionaire in Taiwan. And he also had a lot written up about him in the history book, because he is a person who is always driving for excellence, always, very business mind. So he run a lot of different businesses in Taiwan. So when I met him, a lot of our conversation is about China, because Taiwan at the time was very difficult for Taiwanese to enter into China. And he has a vision. I have to give that to him. He has a vision about doing business in China. He see that China is the market for the future. So in
And
our
at that time,
conversation,
Hong Kong was a gateway into
yes,
mainland
yes,
China.
exactly. So he was asking me, because the time I already went into China, I would start talking to different business people about different kind of a business in China. So he's always very intrigued and interested in talking to me about China. But I didn't know anything about that intention of having me as a bridge, because I have a family business in Hong Kong. We're doing our business in Hong Kong. That's a gateway going into China.
Yeah.
So, and he asked his son to pursue me, and that is what has happened. So that's why when I wrote the book, and I say it's a book of two family, that's two business family, really. That's at the beginning. That's I bring their family into China, and eventually we started about 5 or 6 plants, manufacturing plants in China.
Yes.
And that's how this is all come together. Yeah.
Well, and you were very successful as a businesswoman, because I think you also invested in, like, I think you told me about carpet mills in Georgia.
Yes.
So you had
Yes.
American operations too, and it was really an international business venture, that you
Yes.
guys had going.
Yes. I have, after I graduated from school in England, and that my chapter to America has started. And I have to thank to Gary, because this couple that I mentioned in my book, they're like my American parents. And this couple is actually host Gary when he was studying in America.
Okay.
But we become very good friends. So when I go to America, and he is the one who opened doors for me.
Okay.
He's the one he's also in business as well. And he
Yes.
actually worked in the Nixon era that time.
Right.
And so he actually opened a lot of doors for me and introduced me to a lot of different people, business people in China. I mean, in the US that time. Yeah.
Yes. You have mentioned we can't cover all the parts of your story, and it's such an interesting book, and a pretty quick read, like just over 200 pages. I got through it in a weekend. I think probably it wouldn't take a lot of time to read, but there's a lot of interesting and fascinating details in the story. We can't hit all of them.
Yes.
So I did notice, though, out of this, you mentioned he's your ex, so that kind of gives the story away, you know, that you guys had a parting of the ways. But before that happened, you you had a son, and
Yes.
so there was, you know, some complications as far as not with the pregnancy, but complications with Gary. His heart didn't seem to be fully in the marriage or in the relationship, but you guys did have a son together, and he became like a love of your life. And being a
Yes.
mother, I think, touched you in a way, according to your book, that you had not really expected.
Yes. Yes. I mean, sum it up here very well. You know, being a mother helped me begin to understand what love was all about. I was learning that it gave purpose and fulfillment in my life. At least that's for me. That's
Yes.
definitely. I was uh, I was overjoyed. I was so happy when I was pregnant, and I don't think there's many pregnant women as overjoyed as I am. I was happy. I was literally a happy pregnant woman. you know. And then when Al was born, I was so happy. I every day I see him, it bring a lot of joy into my life. And I think a big part is also, to be very honest, I think because I'm lacking a certain love from my ex-husband, right, from my husband.
Yes.
And I
Yes.
think I I'm getting it from my son, and to replace that part of emptiness in me. I believe that is part of it as well. So, but then with Al, he's such a loving kid. You know, he smile all the time. I mean, every time when you talk to him, he's just break up this beautiful smile. So it's make me even more happy. So Al is become a big part of my life, and it is still a big part of my life. And we went through some very rough time when I went through the divorce, and he is just beginning of his adolescence, teenagers age. Uh,
Yes.
I'm sure he is going through a lot of confusion, or didn't even understand what's going on in his life.
Right.
And I was going through my life crisis, as I said earlier, and I really don't know how to deal with him, because he was just breaking the rules. Whatever boundary I make, he break it, and I'm a very strong mom. I'm a very strong tough
Yes.
mom as well. So
Yes.
we're constantly fighting, we're constantly arguing, we both cry, we both get hurt. And that was not a very nice moments of our time, when during his teenagers age. And then one day I decided I have to change all this, because he is my son, and he is one of the most important person in my life. And
Yes.
so I make a decision of drop everything I was doing at that time, and went to England to rebuild that relationship. It is not a uh, one-time thing, or happen overnight. It is a process, but I have the determination to make it work. I have that determination, no matter how hard, how difficult it is. I have to make it work.
This wasn't a fly in for the weekend and have a like, let's hold hands and, make
Yes,
up and all that. It was
yes,
you moved there and lived there for months on
yes,
end,
yes.
and just dropped everything to be
Yes,
available, right?
yes. I did. And then
Wow.
I even find a coach to coach me.
Okay.
And I even got into a bit of an argument with the coach, because the coach was telling me that I'm wrong, I'm this wrong, I'm that wrong.
You did not want to hear that, did you?
No, and I said that the first thing she asked me, "Do you love your son?" I said, "What kind of question is that? If I don't love my son, I won't be here." So, and she told me that your love come with condition. And that time my son was 18 years old. And she warned me. She told me, "You have no control of your son, because your son is already 18 years old. The only control you have is financially." That's what she said to me. And
Mm,
and I was like, that's not right. I, of course, I'm his mom. He will listen. He has to listen to me, because I'm the mother, right? I know it all. But then in the whole journey, I learned so much about respecting him, respecting your son, respecting your children, and
well,
to build that trust between the two of us. only when the trust is formed, then you can make changes or influence in your children. Because if there's no trust between the both of you, he doesn't trust you, or I don't trust him, whatever decision he makes, or he doesn't trust that I will listen to him or not judging him, then he will not open to us. I mean, Al would not open to me. We talk a lot about this even after we become very close together. I need to go. I want to go back to find out what happened to you. Why are you so difficult? And he looked at me like he said, "Mom, I love you very much. I do. I've always been love you very much. But do you know that how judgmental you are? I'm never good enough for you.
Oh,
Whatever I do,
oh,
whatever I do is not good for you." I was shocked. I was literally and no mother wants to hear this, right? Because we all have good intention. We all have good intention, wanted our son to be the best. And we think we know it all because we went through that ourselves. We have all this experience in life. We don't want our kids to go through the same experience.
right.
But who are we to tell? Because he has his own life. So I told him from when he was in his teenage age, I told him, I say, Al, I give you a life, but it's your own life. You have to take control of your own life. And the same thing that I take control of my own life. I always take control of my own destiny. And that I although I'm saying it, but I'm still making mistakes, and because it's your children, it's your son, it's your daughter, and you will always want the best for them. We think it's the best for them, but have we ever asked them, is that the best for them, for him or her? So I learned so much during this period of time. It took us a few years to build back that confidence, that communications, that trust. And now we are the best of friends. We talk about everything every day. Every day he texts me 2 or 3 times. He lives in LA. I live in South Carolina now.
Okay.
And he texts me 2 or 3 times a day. He will worry about me like he's the mom, he's the dad now, the mom now, and I'm the baby, I'm the kid, but that is so sweet. It's such a wonderful feeling. So I really want that for all the parents out there to have that special relationship with their children. Yeah.
You model that well, May, because I think, your story, and the family you came from, it wasn't like people really asked or took notice of your emotions, or said like, it matters, what you're feeling. It's kind of like, you're just expected, kind of like, soldier up, like you said, your mom was a very strong woman. So it's like, if you're going through a hard time, it's kind of like, summon up the strength and, muscle through, push on through. But in your book, you mentioned in this chapter, depression, and you mentioned it earlier in our talk here about how you just, everything fell apart within a very short time, relationship, business, and just, self-confidence. And you just took a hit, not just a hit, you took 3 hits. It are hits from all directions. And when your family that you came from saw you kind of fall, they didn't know how to help you. They didn't know how to come alongside and kind of show you the love that you most needed.
Yeah.
And so I think it's quite a statement to make, that you were able to find with your son Al a way to say, it's not about my perspective, but I need to get into his world and understand how he sees things. I need to listen to this coaching from this coach, even though I don't like what they're saying. It makes me mad, but I've got to listen.
Yes.
I've got to be fair. I've got to respect the other person.
Yeah, I think respect and who he is. What, we understand our children in a certain extent, but they're out in the world. They have so many other experiences that we don't know, and so many people that they have met. We don't necessarily know them very well either.
Yeah.
And that's where they also get the experience from. So I always tell parents, especially when they're young age, it's so important to shape who they are when they're young, because when they're young, they're always with the parents. They learn from the parents. They see what values you bring and all that. As they get older, as they venture out on their own, it's having to talk to them, to understand them instead of jump right into criticizing that they're not doing right
Okay.
or their friends are not good. Of course,
Right.
we also learn that, who you become is what kind of friends you hang out with, right? And so you wanted to know what's going on in their life, but not by interfering, is by observing and guiding them. Because,
Right.
and that's what I said, is when they trust you, they will want to talk to you because they have so much fear in them too at that age. Because there's a lot of things they're still finding out the answer, they're still learning. They might not know what it is, but they don't know where to go to. If they don't go to their parents, they definitely will go to their friends. Then you have to know what kind of friends they have, right? Or they
Yes.
figure it out. And I think for us it's important to have a listening ear instead of jump right in to tell them they are wrong, they're not making the right decision, they're doing wrong things and all that. So just be there to listen and to acknowledge what they have said, and then to ask questions. I think, as you know, you are a coach, we always ask questions, right? We
Yes.
ask questions
Right.
and listen to the answer and build that rapport, build that relationship, like what we build with our, our clients, the same way. So there is a certain trust level there. When there's a
Yes.
trust level that they will tell you, because they're dying to share their fear with you, but what they're afraid is you tell them they're wrong. You tell them they're not right. You tell them that there are other ways to do it because I've been through it. These are the things that I don't think the kids would want to hear it.
Right.
So Al and I is over the period where we were building back our relationship. I sent him a lot of inspirational quote every day I will send him one or two until every day until today. I still do the same. If I
Wow.
When I see all this inspirational quote that come into my phone or
You
I
pass it
read,
along.
I pass it along. And I also give him my first book that I not the first book I read that I pick up read a very small book is called The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari.
Okay. Yes.
So I gave him the book to read, and years later he told me, "Mom, this book has changed my life."
Wow. Okay.
And I didn't know that's such a big impact. But the reason why I'm giving him all that quote is basically is training his mind, building his positive mindset.
Yes.
Because all this is when he read, he might not relate to whatever the quote means, but the more you read, the more you will stop and think, yeah, that probably makes sense. And that's what I have been doing with him. Even until today, I never stop. I will send him books, I will send him quotes, I will send him podcasts that I've been watching, or the motivational talk or people that has some good things say about certain things, business, life, relationship. I send that to him. And I also encourage him to go and do some training. He just went to one of those self-awareness training in LA. He did
Okay.
over a weekend, and we came back. We share about that
Wow.
experience, and also I did a psychometric tools on him. He did this and driving force,
Okay.
um, and all that because I want him to first understand himself first.
Okay.
What strength is he process? How he operate? What really motivate him? What are the things that why he's doing things in a certain way?
Yes.
What are the values? These are the things that I think any one of us should do. I really feel that if I didn't go into that business, I probably didn't know
Yeah.
there is such a assessment out there that can help me so much.
So I was
Not
going to ask you about that because as a business person, there's like, okay, you've demonstrated how to be a really good mom. And the chapter in your book, chapter 8, Unconditional Love, is like, man, I mean, we could spend a whole, hour just talking about that. It's really powerful. But some people might say, yeah, but May, in business, you really can't bring love in, it's just business. But I kind of think that some of the things you just mentioned they can be expressions of love that a leader can do, which is like invest in your people, encourage them to grow and develop themselves, make unselfish investments in them. And I've heard leaders say, oh, no, you can't do that, or because they'll just leave. They'll go off and like, that's wasted money. They'll go off and waste all that training because they'll go to your competitor. They'll go to another place. And I often like to ask them, so you want to keep them around and have basically dumb people that you don't train, you don't teach them anything?
Yeah. I think in that respect, one thing I do learn from my father in business, he always very kind to the employee, kind
Okay.
in the sense that he always care about them.
Yeah.
And I see that in his business, most of his employees stay with him over 10 years, 15 years, 20 years.
Okay.
And I was wondering why these people stay so long. Is that because maybe my father's too kind or something?
It wasn't just the paycheck, was it?
No, because my father would care about their family. My father would ask about their kids, how their kids are doing. They will go to school, where they go to school, and things like that. I think people in general, human being, we have that love inside of us.
Yes.
We have a lot of compassion in us. Sometimes it's because we think we are a business person. That
Yes.
compassion shouldn't show.
Okay.
And in my experience in business is how you treat people and how people treating you back. And in most cases, a lot of leaders, they are managers, they're not leaders. Because they do things themselves, they just pick on things. Oh, you're not doing it right. I will take it out from you. I'll do it. I do better than you. I'm sure we can do better because of the experience that we have. But you want a good team of people who can help you to grow your business, who can help you and work with you through good time, through hard time. These are the group of people that you want to have. And that's why they are like your children. You have to nurture them. You have to train them. You have to support them. You have to give them love. And they, in turn, will treat your business like their own. And they will take care of your business. They will know when the business is not going the right way. They will know how they will tell you, they will work with you to making it right. And I was lucky to have some very good employees in my career in business. And one time I was in Hong Kong, we hit the financial crisis. So we lost a bit of money in our business. Then we have to start lay off some of our employees, which I really didn't want to do, but we don't have a lot of choices at the time because most of the company cannot even afford to pay their salary. So there was one lady that she is doing that kind of like run around job. Those days we don't have DHL or FedEx or courier that convenient. So we still depends on people who deliver documents to one place to another. So she is a slightly older woman than I was at the time. So I got her in, I talked to her and I say, look, I really don't have a choice. I have to let you go. But if you really encounter difficulties, if you have difficulties and all that, let me know. I will do whatever I can to help you. And she came in return. What she told me really touched my heart. She said, May, I can work for you for free.
Oh, my.
He said, I know the company is going through a tough time, but I want to tell you that, I'm here for you. I want to work for you for free.
Wow.
I almost broke down in tears, honestly. I mean, it's not a very important position, but for somebody who say that to me, that really touched my heart so much. So it has always been my principle as well. And when I look in my employee, I treat them like they are my children. So I think you will get that in return in your business. Of course, you have to find the right people. That's also important, right?
That's correct.
I think that is where the assessment comes in. If I knew there is such an assessment around when I was in my 30s, I know where to put people in a certain job or certain place. I understand their behavior, how to communicate with them, how to be, how to understand their world. It will make me definitely a better leader.
Very good.
Yeah.
That's a great points. And I think the whole point of finding your own confidence, showing love to other people is like, it's because you've touched a certain humanity. You went through a really difficult situation. And so you have a feeling for other people versus, like you mentioned, the manager or the person who's like just all business and has no real regard or no feeling for other people. That's going to be hard. You're not going to find people very loyal or understanding whenever you need them to be understanding. So
I mean, it is very obvious, and when the person don't enjoy the job or don't have a good relationship with their boss, and you will know, you definitely will know that he'll be wasting a lot of things, or wasting a lot of resources, and he will do his job as minimal as possible. He will not go out of the way, because the first thing he feel, what did I learn? What can I learn from this? I'm not going to learn anything from this job or doing things. So I just give whatever the salary equivalent to the salary, that amount of work that I'm going to put in. But you really want to have people who are who have your back. This is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Because sometimes there's some things is external that you cannot control, like the economy, the crisis, the war, whatever that is. If that hits, it probably will impact your businesses as well.
The pandemic, there's all sorts of outside situations that come up.
But those are the time that's most importantly that you have a strong team.
Yes.
When you have a strong team, they will find a way out. They will work their butt off to make it work for you. And I have that kind of experience myself, and I am very thankful for that. So I really encourage all the leaders do the same. I mean, we all are human beings. We just show love, show a bit of a love to your team, and they are family.
Have a little confidence in your people too. So it's confidence is not just like a personal assertion. It's also about learning to put a little trust and have confidence in people to come through and do the right thing.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed our conversation. This is great. And I'm appreciative that you took time to write your story. I think all leaders could benefit from looking at their own life story and looking for some of the lessons. But I would say, if there's any caveat I would give to leaders is be careful about trying to teach lessons that sound good, but don't come from hard-earned, tough knock sort of experiences. Because you crashed, you wrote about it, and you talked about depression and denial and just some really painful experiences. But it has that sense of truth to it that I sat up and I paid attention, and I really appreciate you for writing this book. And I'm going to encourage anyone watching this, go get a copy of this. In fact, give a copy, give it to a friend, especially, someone that you want to encourage to keep going in their endeavors in life. May has overcome a lot of obstacles, and you'll get encouragement from her example.
Thank you, Ron.
Yeah. So I've enjoyed this great conversation for the self-aware leader. May is definitely self-aware and, leading us. And, she's mentioned several things: using a coach, listening to people, being fair, coming from love, lots of great lessons there. So if you want to find this, you can go on Amazon. I've also got a link in our description down below that you could find this, to get a copy of May's book. And I would just, encourage people to come back for more of these kind of conversations on the Self-Aware Leader. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you.